Evening, race fans, and welcome to Podium Esports coverage of the 5th round of Season 3 of Monday Night Racing, the Beef Jerky Unlimited Challenge at iRacing's virtual Lime Rock Park in Lakeville, Connecticut. And of course, you are going to be here with us for Monday Night Racing's pre-race show with, of course, myself, Taylor Burris, Justin Prince, and of course, our wonderful producer, Mr. Ryan Bauer. Justin, we are at the famed Lime Rock Park, one of the first original circuits to be introduced on the iRacing service, and also with the MX-5 Global Cup car. This car is one of the main staples to grassroots racing all around the world, and we're about to take it on one of the most electrifying circuits in all of North American motor racing. In fact, the bull ring of road course racing.
It's going to be a fun race tonight, I think, because this is going to be a race where it will definitely challenge the competitors to where they need to be very perfectionist when it comes to their lines, as well as minimize any mistakes they make. And in turn, it's going to bring a lot of different front runners to this type of race. It's also going to be where the draft could be a very important, Taylor. In our words, it brings a different kind of driving style and brings many different drivers as a result to the forefront to see who can take home the checkered flag.
It certainly is. Of course, everyone is going to be looking at the driver that has been quite dominant when it comes to MX-5 racing, and that's none other than Preston Pardus. Preston Pardus, of course, is a multi-champion SCCA MX-5 champion with the Miata class in the SCCA runoffs as well as other racing series across there. But there's someone else also to keep an eye who knows a thing or two about making their way around this track, as well as in the MX-5 Cup cars, and that's none other than Brad Perez. He's going to be making his actually Monday night debut here, as we're looking forward to seeing what he can do, and he'll actually be joining us a little bit later on in order to talk about that. So, Justin, who are you going to be looking at as well to see who could be a possible front runner in tonight's action?
I'm keeping my eye on a couple of our competitors. Will Rogers, who has some experience with this car in the real world, as well a lot in the virtual world. But Gabe Wood as well has been very quick in practice. He's somebody I feel is going to be a front runner as well that may be shuffling around and battling for great positions. I know he was looking very confident entering tonight's race. Also keeping my eye on particular Josh Balicki. Also somebody with Miata experience when it comes to this car in the real world. And he's also been very quick in practice so far, Taylor. So those three drivers are ones I wouldn't be surprised to see battling for the top 5 as the evening progresses, as long as they stay clean. That's going to be the critical point.
It certainly is. Of course, with these cars, they have the new damage model that's been instituted on these MX-5 Cup cars. So it's going to provide a little bit of excitement and also make sure that we have to take care of these cars, especially going into turn 1 since it's a standing start, and especially through lap 1. Well, let's go ahead and bring up our special guest for the pre-race show, Brad Perez. As we get him up here, Brad, welcome to Monday Night Racing presented by Napa. And of course, how do you feel with making your debut in a car and track you're quite familiar with?
I'm pretty stoked. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me. Thanks everyone for putting this on. I've been following these events for quite a while, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty special to be a part of. I love Miatas, you guys know that, and I'm ready to dice it up with a couple Miata guys and a bunch of people who I cannot imagine ever driving a Miata. So it's pretty fun. So I'm stoked.
Now, there's someone in here that you're looking forward to go toe-to-toe with, and that's none other than Preston Pardus. And in fact, if I remember correctly, talking a little bit and hearing about before we got started, you actually is a goal in your life to actually try and beat Preston Pardus in an MX-5 Cup race.
Absolutely. I've been racing against Preston for about 2 or 3 years, and I've never got to beat Preston on track. So this is my one chance to beat him on a level-ish playing field. It's gonna be hard to beat, but I'm just trying to keep all 4 on, and maybe I have a chance to beat him.
Now, we talked about this earlier before the broadcast about the toughness when it comes to this track, and one of the main things you mentioned was you expected the winner to be someone that can perfect the racing line. When it comes to yourself here, how confident do you feel about your chances to come away with the checkered flag, especially knowing how difficult it is to nail the line here at the racetrack with the elevation changes?
It's tough. I mean, I can't call myself a seasoned iRacer. I feel like a lot of like spec Miata racing and Miata racing in general, even on the sim, is your ability to follow a train of cars and know where the corner is without actually seeing it. And Lime Rock is no exception to that. A lot of in the elevation changes, like you said, you'll be following a car and you can't see down or up. So it's just gonna be a matter of being locked in, full focus, and just no mistakes.
Well, Brad, we really do appreciate your time coming up here for pre-race, and we look forward to seeing what you can do tonight, and good luck out there.
Thanks. I hope I don't fall in.
That is Brad Perez, of course, is a Spec Miata expert, and of course making his Monday Night Racing presented by Napa debut here. Well, let's take a closer look at Lime Rock Park as we zoom on in from Google Earth. Of course, Lime Rock Park is located in beautiful Lakeville, Connecticut, and has been a part of sports car racing for quite some time. Opened in 1957, this 1.5-mile circuit is considered to be the bull ring of road course racing. This 7-turn circuit is also a main staple in the iRacing community, as it's one of the first road courses that you get to go to when it comes to starting off in the world of iRacing, Justin.
Absolutely, and it brings plenty of great racing and challenges, especially in the complex from Big Bend all the way to the left and right-hander to the no-name straight. That's going to be one of the more challenging parts of the racetrack today, where drivers are going to go off in the little runoff area there is into the grass and end up in turn having potential for attrition in that part of the racetrack. It's also going to be your best passing opportunity to run up to Big Bend today. But the back straight in particular is going to be very challenging, Taylor, because that's where the biggest elevation change is, where you're going over top a hill crest and in some cases jumping all four wheels off the ground. So it's going to be very difficult to keep yourself on the pavement today and make sure you don't go off into the grass.
It certainly is, and this race here is considered probably a game-changing race, a wild card race for some drivers when it comes to the point standing. As we see right now, Anthony Alfredo is still your points leader, with 2 drivers already guaranteed with their wins so far, including Adam Cabot, who was our last round winner at Indianapolis. But Shane Van Gisbergen and Matt Stolnick currently sit 12th and 13th with their wins, but are guaranteed a spot into the playoffs. But who else are you kind of looking at right now who can have a shot of working their way up through the point standings after tonight, Justin?
Sexton, Justin Malillo in particular, who are tied for 14th place with 141 points, is somebody and a couple of somebodies who I'm looking towards already in this for the chance to claw the way up forward in the point standings. But I wouldn't be surprised to see as well drivers like Devin Henry do well tonight, Brett Baldeck be able to claw the way up the points, or many of the others who are below 20th place be able to shoot up the standings with a good performance today. In our words, it's not going to be easy, yes, but there is an opportunity for several drivers who are just below that cutoff right now who could claw their way in above said cutoff with a good performance today. And for the pressure as well, though, David Schildhaus is going to really need to have a good run after a rough one at Indianapolis.
Certainly going to be something to keep an eye on. Well, as practice is finishing up right now, Justin, we'll give you a quick rundown of the top 3. Will Rogers, Preston Pardis, and Gabe Wood. And about the top 10 is in the 57-second bracket. So a great field of drivers. Probably one of our biggest fields. Kind of reminds you of an SCCA race with the MX-5 of those large fields. And what a great track. Well, Justin, it's time that we bring the pre-race show to a close. But when we come back, we're going to toss it over to the voices of the Monday Night Racing Season 3, James Pike and Kenneth Bueno, as they bring you all the stories, action, and excitement here at Lime Rock Park. This has been Monday Night Racing, presented by Napa Pre-Race Show.
There's a place where fire and flavor are celebrated, where grilling traditions and new techniques are perfected. Here in Big Green Egg Country, you can grill it, roast it, smoke it, or bake it. It's the most versatile grill you'll ever own. Simple to light, easy to use, comes with a free lifetime warranty. Have it delivered to your door by a certified dealer in your community and start enjoying the ultimate cooking experience. Shop online for home delivery at biggreenegg.com. That's biggreenegg.com.
When you want to be the best, you can't settle for the rest. There's a reason that Maconi Setup Shop is trusted by more virtual and real-world tracks and companies than any other setup shop in iRacing. With partners such as Stafford Motor Speedway, the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway, Five Flag Speedway, Speed 51, and more. When you want something done right, you go to the experts at Maconi Setup Shop.
With setups available for most series on both asphalt and dirt, built by a team of professional builders consisting of some of the top talents on the service, Maconi Setup Shop LLC has what you need to hit the track with confidence. Head over to MaconiSetupShop.com and learn why Maconi Setup Shop is the official setup shop of Richmond Raceway Esports and is partnered with some of the largest names in virtual and real racing.
And remember, at Maconi Setup Shop, there are setups, but your victories.
We are an industrial flooring company specializing in custom floors and drains. We don't believe in the one-size-fits-all approach to flooring, and neither should you. When you choose Tufco, we consult with you about your needs, industry requirements, and factor in numerous variables. After assessing your facility, we engineer your floor and drains, then install everything ourselves. That's the Tufco way.
Visit our website at tufcoflooring.com.
Good evening, race fans, and welcome to Podium Esports coverage of the 5th round of Season 3 of Monday Night Racing, the Beef Jerky Unlimited Challenge at iRacing's virtual Lime Rock Park in Lakeville, Connecticut. James Pike, the voice of Podium Esports here, alongside Kenneth Bueno, Justin Pritzby down on pit road for us, and as always, Ryan Bauer, our producer for the evening, with cameras set up and designed by Dougie Beer. Kenneth, it's the first time in my memory that I can remember us racing with the Miatas in Monday Night Racing, but this is a car that everybody knows, especially on the road side of iRacing. It's the very first car that you run as a rookie of the service, and as such, is going to be a car that is going to be familiar to most drivers in tonight's field. The question is, who's actually mastered these things? That's what we're going to be watching for this evening.
We are, and this sort of combo kind of deserves that mastery in order to go for the checkered flag and go for the win, because you talk about an historic, well-renowned American road course, Lime Rock Park in Connecticut, and then you have a race car that is known on its street version as a great driving experience, and in the race car version, it's a great racing experience. So you have these two sort of combos, a short road course and this kind of low power but kind of fun Mazda Miata MX-5. It is certainly going to be a very interesting combo, and mastery is probably going to be the name of the game, because this track does not hold itself for at least margins of error. That's very, very small here tonight, and I think that's what we're going to see as these drivers tackle it.
This is one of the best racing series in the world in real life, right up there with V8 supercars down in Australia. But how many times, just within the past few months in the 2021 season, have we seen the MX-5 Cup go 3-4 wide to the finish line to wrap up races? They did that at Daytona. They were 3 wide at Sebring. So I expect something similar of this ilk. But if we're looking at names to watch, I think the standout has to be the road course ace of Monday Night Racing, the driver with the highest average finish across all road races in the history of MNR, and Space Station Gaming's chief on the racing side of things, Will Rogers.
And you also have to think of a lot of other drivers, and I think Taylor and Justin nailed in the pre-race. Guys like Preston Pardis, who has some real-life experience racing the Mazda Miata, as well as a new entrant in this series, Brad Perez, who also races Mazda Miatas in spare time in real life. So these guys are coming into tonight's race. We've seen a lot of drivers who have been good on road courses. If you look at the Pro 2s when we went to Watkins Glen, but especially Will Rogers as the defending champion, those other two, there's probably going to be a handful, James, that we're going to be watching over the course of tonight's event.
More drivers that we'll tell you about as we progress through the proceedings this evening. But before we do, we're going to take a small moment here to reflect and to remember. In between our break over the Memorial Day period, Brian Lear passed away, a good friend of everyone at JD Motorsports and a good friend of some of the drivers in Monday Night Racing, including Gabe Wood and Ryan Vargas, amongst others. Brian was a friend to all, beloved by all the folks at JDM, and his untimely passing hit everyone in that camp particularly hard. So we now here at Podium Esports pause before tonight's race to honor and to remember Brian Lear. And now, as always, it is time to honor America with the playing of our national anthem. Time to quickly take a look at Lime Rock Park in Lakeville, Connecticut, show you where we are in the world, courtesy of our friends at Google Earth. This is a 1.53-mile, 2.46-kilometer road course with 7 turns that opened in 1957 and just got an update recently, just last year in iRacing, to add some of the newer chicanes. We are running the classic layout, though, so it's going to be high speed all the way around. Time to look at the starting grid, where Will Rogers has picked up the Beef Jerky Unlimited Pole Award for the Beef Jerky Unlimited Challenges with a time of 57.856 seconds. And maybe not surprised that you've got Miata specialists alongside. It's Preston Pardish, Brad Perez that'll be starting in second and third, with Stephen Wilson, Nick Sanchez, and Gabe Wood completing the first 3 rows.
Then back to the 4th row, you'll find Josh Balicki. You see, defending Indianapolis winner, at least from last week, Adam Cabot, Ryan Vargas behind him with TJ Majors. Then you look back to Brandon Brown, Roger Carruth in the 6th row to 12.
Anthony Alfredo headlines the drivers on this page. David Schildhouse is also there, as is Garrett Miller and Gary Sexton.
And behind them, Devin Henry starts on the outside of row 10. You'll see Eggert and Melillo to 11. Ford Martin, Matt Stonick, Daytona winner on the outside of row 12.
Ron Capps of the NHRA Funny Car World is there, as is ESPN NFL reporter Mike Clay and Steve Affont.
And behind them, row 15, Brett Baldick, Stephen Ellis. Then you find Michael Massey, Greg Stump, and Parker Kligerman returning to the series at the edge of row number 18.
And Kligerman now a co-owner of Lime Rock Park. DJ Cummings, Chad Reed, Paul Sutton, and Drew Welker complete this field. We have a standing start this evening for a race that will go 60 minutes plus 1 lap time. So we'll have a competition caution at the 30-minute mark. 1 quick repair available to these drivers. 2 sets of tires if they need them on this fixed setup. Currently, the in-sim time is May 15th, 2021, the default day in iRacing, around 4:20 p.m. local time. Air temp 69 degrees Fahrenheit, track temp 96 degrees Fahrenheit, winds out of the north at 2 miles an hour, and humidity of 29%. A little bit drier race than what you'd find for May in the Northeast here, but this is a beautiful facility. Looking forward to plenty of action with these Miatas in the Beef Jerky Unlimited Challenge for Monday Night Racing, and plenty of road racing power in those first few rows. We are set, we are ready, and we are going to see everyone light up off this grid momentarily as drivers begin to rev the engines and wait for their command to fire off and drive off into turn number 1 at Lime Rock Park. The mad dash to get down to the inside first as we go, and we are underway with the Beef Jerky Unlimited Challenge. And Nick Sanchez got a good jump to get to the inside of M&R debutant Brad Perez, but Will Rogers jumps ahead by 2-3 car lengths as they go off into the first set of turns for the first time.
And you see everybody fanning out that the first set of right-handers are going to go straight for the left and go for quite possibly the S's, at least as you would call it here at Lime Rock Park, before they head up the crest. As you see the entire field go down, one driver all the way to the outside, as many of them trying to get themselves single files to head back up the hill.
Back up the hill and down the no-name straight. How convenient before they hit the uphill. This very fast, very tricky corner. It's almost like the reverse of what you see at the corkscrew at Laguna Seca, because you lose gravity coming over the crest of that hill, and then you're riding the edge through West Bend, and then you come down the downhill to this very fast turn 7, where yet again you're sort of holding the balance between carrying as much speed as you can while not driving off the edge of the racetrack, as Nick Sanchez just did. You look out Preston Pardish's windshield and see the madness as a few cars go spinning towards the back.
A couple cars spinning. I saw one go around as soon as they went over that left hand. We're going to try to see who that is, but as they head back to turn 1, you see most of the drivers just trying to develop that rhythm. I saw a little bit of contact in the middle, as you see right on board with the 38 of Anthony Alfredo. I saw contact between Joshua Balicki and Ryan Vargas as they were heading up the hill, but it seems to be a no harm, no foul. They continue straight, but here, James, again, like I said at the top of the show, the margin of error is just so slim. There's grass everywhere that it looks like you can save the car for the most part, but if you get something wrong, you go into the grass. You can't really control that car that much.
And you see it here. There's a great shot looking over the hill. The car's just jumping and leaving the racetrack momentarily before they come back to terra firma when they get to the top of the crest there. But it can be a little bit hairy if you don't line up your exit correctly, as we go on board with La Mirada, California's Ryan Vargas, driver for JD Motorsports with Gary Keller in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. Looks like that's one car going off, and that was Josh Balicki, I think, that went off on the grass and maybe vulnerable to a pass. Here goes Vargas to the inside of Balicki entering the first turn.
going to be a place, I think, James, where we're going to see the setup for passes happen often, because you have a long straightaway and the San Jose straight all the way to turn 1, so you can kind of gather the draft and maybe the momentum off the final corner, since it is relatively fast with these low power Miatas, that you can get that draft, you can already come up and then go for the inside, go for the outside, and try to dive it as hard as you can to turn 1. Now you're going to ride on board with third place Brad Perez. You see Nick Sanchez and Will Rogers, but as Rogers continues to kind of pull away from the field, I think Brad Perez is starting to reel in Sanchez for second.
Will Rogers, you can see the gap already to Nick Sanchez, up to 1.3 seconds, so not a surprise to see the man, so far as road course racing goes in MNR, beginning to gap the rest of this field. But it's a good battle there between Sanchez, who we've seen in Monday Night Racing for the last few seasons, Stephen Wilson, another name that has been competing for a few months in MNR now, looking for his place to make a move as they head off into Big Bend. And you get a sense of just how tricky it can be to roll the car up after that long run down the San Jose straight, especially with the lack of banking that you have, as Ron Capps looks to the inside of the 52 machine of Garrett Smithley a little bit further back.
You see a couple drivers trying to go side by side. I saw a little bit of contact to the midfield there, James, between David Schildhouse and Roger Carruth. Both of them hit sides, and I heard David Schildhouse say over the radio, I knew it as soon as they made contact and as soon as they were trying to go for the corners. So I don't believe there's much damage, but remember, James, these cars got equipped with the new damage model on the iRacing service. So with all that damage you can accrue, it could probably make things a lot worse handling-wise with these Monza Miata Cup cars.
A little bit of contact there as we go on board with Preston Pardus, a two-time and defending Spec Miata SCCA national champion. Picked up the title at Road America last October. So if ever there were a combo that we would think Preston Pardus would be the favorite in, it would have to be anything with the MX-5 Miata Cup car. And here we are, first time we're running in Monday Night Racing. He's got a good run going now. Sliding back to Fox 46 reporter Brett Baldock out of Rochester, New York. Baldock riding a little bit further back in the field, but just waiting, I think, for the madness to unfold in front of him. Inevitably, we'll see somebody lose it coming up over the hill at turn 5, the gigantic crest better known as the uphill, and Josh Balicki trying to navigate that very corner now. And you see just how particularly straight you have to have the car when you crest that ridge. If you are turning in any way, shape, or form, when that car lands back down on the pavement, you are almost certainly going to go for a spin, either to the inside or the outside, depending on how that car lands.
Yeah, and it does not, at least, it does not go for specific cars. It's for pretty much any car on the iRacing service. And I can recall when iRacing did an event here at this very racetrack with the new Corvette CARs at the time. And those cars that have way more power can get more unstable than these cars can going up the hill. So even with these cars having some of that low power, it does not discriminate whatsoever. It will hit you at any moment. And if you kind of have the car in the wrong place, that car is going to go straight around, straight for the guardrails, and you do not want that happening as you run on board Brad Perez. He's still trying to tail second, but as you see him go back up the hill, James, it is not easy. Going to try to go up the hill, keep that throttle in, don't hit the grass.
But a good run on Nick Sanchez, just Brad Perez making his debut in Monday Night Racing this evening. Normally a crew member for Martin's Motorsports in Rackley War. Also a Spec Miata driver in his spare time. So he's someone who's got some experience with these cars above all else, and maybe not a huge surprise to see him in the hunt for a good podium finish as he looks to the inside. Not quite enough momentum to get around Brad Perez, but just a little bit further back. Look at these two going door to door. You've got Stephen Wilson and Preston Pardus there as Perez nearly makes contact with Nick Sanchez, working their way towards the left hand.
You see them continuing on through. I saw one car down in the grass, I think in turn just letting everybody by, or may have overshot the corner, riding back with Perez. And again, James, we're probably going to see this throughout most of the night. If you can get to the back bumper, maintain yourself consistent behind the driver, you're going to be able to make these moves. You're going to be able to tag in the draft, stay with them. And again, like I mentioned earlier, with that long straightaway, the San Jose straight to turn 1, you can build up all of that draft, develop a pack, make a lot of these passes. That's exactly what Stefan Wilson and Preston Pardus are doing right now. They want to tail behind Brad Perez, see if he makes a mistake against Nick Sanchez, but a mistake by driver behind him, the 90 of Preston Pardus, almost goes into the tire barrier on the final corner. He's going to get swarmed by everybody behind.
Partis gets nailed, and they go 3 wide for second. What a move from Stefan Wilson to get around Brad Perez and Nick Sanchez to take over P2. And now Wilson will set his sights on trying to reel in Will Rogers, who, to the credit of this group just behind the 65, has only let the leader get out to a 1.4 second lead. It's not like Will Rogers has been able to run away with this yet.
He definitely hasn't, James, and you probably expected that with the way he pulled out that lead that he would kind of keep going and keep going, but even though we've seen aggressivity out of the top 2 or top 3, they still have been able to keep Will Rogers in grasp. So if they start to kind of work together, if they start to get faster, they can start to reel them in, and then Rogers will start to feel the pressure, because like we saw there, James, if you get pressure from one driver, then starts coming more and more and more drivers as Adam Cabot in 5th, Wood in 6th, and a handful of others try to tail on behind.
Already starting to snake. You can see it with some of the long shots as Nick Sanchez begins to respond. He'll try and get after Brad Perez and take back that 3rd position and begin his climb back to P2. Perez will give him the lane there. You've got some wide curves to work with here at Lime Rock Park, and shall we say spongier suspensions than most. These Miatas can take a little bit more of a hit off these curbs than some of the other cars that are available to drivers in iRacing, but really good fight for P3 as Stefan Wilson has opened up about a half-second lead on this battle for 3rd.
Yeah, you can definitely take advantage of the curbing here at Lime Rock with these cars. And I think for many other cars on the service, I mean, I can kind of think of the Indy cars and some other open wheel cars, probably the Skip Barbers, that it's a little harder to try and get those curbs to make those corners. But with these Miatas, since they're a little bit heftier and since they can kind of bounce around a little bit, you can use some of that at least curbing to make your car turn, give it that advantage, give it that extra arc into the apex, and especially through the back end of the course, that's where the curbs really start to make a name for themselves. As you see the 57 machine try to go into the corner, there's the car right behind Gabe Wood. Preston Partis to that small mistake, utilizing the curbs in the S part of the course.
Only down in 7th. It was a decent bounce off the fence for Partis coming out of the final corner and heading down the Sam Posey Straight as we look at the man who got the victory 2 weeks ago, Adam Cabot, there from Glen Gardner, New Jersey, holding the 5th position just ahead of Preston Partis now, who managed to get around Gabe Wood, who got wide coming out of the right-hander. And yes, as a matter of fact, that is the actual name of the corner. Very straightforward names for these corners at Lime Rock Park, almost sort of Abbott and Costello in the who, what, where, and who's on first type. There's the left-hander, the right-hander, the uphill, West Bend, the downhill, Big Bend. Pretty straightforward, so just keep your eyes peeled. You might have to memorize what these corners look like in order to remember where we are referring to when we speak them.
Hey, if you can make the names easy, that makes it easier for everybody. So you don't have to give them spectacular names to be memorable or to have sort of effect on everybody. As you see that side-by-side battle right there, Gabe Wood under pressure as you ride on board with, I believe that's Will Rogers up ahead of this field, and Stefan Wilson. And speaking of which, Stefan Wilson is starting to creep up a little bit. Gap was about 1.1, 1.2 seconds. It's now gone down to 8/10. So as we're seeing Stefan Wilson push up to the field, Will Rogers may have something extra to think about in a couple laps.
Stefan Wilson has been pretty quick. Brad Perez has been pretty quick. They're all hanging right there in that 57.89, 58.0 range, and it's only tenths between these folks, but not much between these drivers at the pointy end of this field. They'll come across the stripe. We'll see what lap times look like this time by. Rogers with the 58.0, and it's like Wilson with a 57.8, Perez with the 57.9. So 10th here, 10th there, 10th here, 10th there. Could make this very intriguing in the next 5 laps or so.
And that's the best part about road course racing, James, is that if you lose time in one place, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to lose time anywhere else. And I think you can kind of use Indianapolis 2 weeks ago as a reference point, right? Because you have high momentum Indy cars, and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is such a large track that if you mess up turn 1, you're probably going to end up messing up turn 2 because of the way you set up turn 1. But here at Lime Rock Park and at all the road courses on the sim and in the real world, if you mess up in one corner, sure, you'll lose time, but if you're faster in another sector, you can gain all of that time back and more if you want to. So that also helps things out. Take a look here a little bit further back in this field. That is TJ Majors in his machine riding around 9th. We're on the top 10 where Ryan Vargas is. He's got a small pack where Preston Partis is at this point. And I think now, James, we're starting to see more drivers enter the fold. It was about maybe 3 or 4 drivers in the first couple laps, and now at the 48-minute mark, we've got probably about 7 or 8.
somewhere in the ballpark makes a decent amount of sense there. As you're starting to see the field bunch up. The gap between the top 10 cars is only 6.5 seconds. And also note, I want to go a little bit further back in the field to around the 20th position and hit 17th in particular, because the driver in 17th as it stands is the man behind the wheel of the 75, and that is Parker Kligerman, Westport, Connecticut, Stamford, Connecticut. I guess home can change depending on whether or not he's in the NBC studios in Stamford or not. But the driver for Hinneman's Motorsports in the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series recently announced that he had bought into the ownership group at Lime Rock Park, and this is home turf for him. I would think that of all the drivers in this field, he's got more real-world experience than anyone else, and Kligerman started in 36, didn't even get the chance to set a qualifying time, already up to 17th, and we still have the halfway caution that will bunch the field together at the 30-minute mark. So don't rule out Parker Kligerman for a good run just yet. And as we look back towards the front of the field, and ever so slightly do we see Wilson and Perez continuing to creep up and creep up and creep up just a little bit more on your leader, Will Rogers.
They continue to move up to the field. I think they're going to pack in here. See a couple drivers, James, down pit road. I believe I can recall Michael Massey, Drew Walker, Paul Sutton. They are all on pit road right now. So I think at this point, James, even with only a handful of minutes ticked down in this 1 hour race, a lot of drivers are already going for the strategy button here.
And as we see some drivers on pit road, we'll throw our attention down to pit road and to our pit reporter, Justin Prince. Justin, what do you have for us?
Now, one of the main discussion points came from Brad Perez, where he mentioned there is the possibility for drivers to be able to make it on a full tank of gas without stopping if they save gas around the halfway mark of the race. The reason I mention that is because several drivers have been concerned about fuel across the radios in the early portions of this race and the amount of fuel burn. That's going to become very critical, James, as this race goes on, is can drivers save enough gas to make sure they can go the distance without having to come down the pit lane, because track position, as we've seen so far, has been very vital, and it's been talked about in particular by Perez to be extremely vital here at this racetrack for tonight.
Especially with the way these cars race, that makes 100% sense that you need track position, because you're not really going to be able to drive through the field all that easily. These Miatas are not comers and goers in a racing sense by nature, so being up near the front will be particularly useful in this car, and much more so than, maybe a GT3 or a GTLM, where you've got enough power to make up some time if you know how to run the line here at Lime Rock. The other point that I get out of that, Kenneth Bueno, that I think is important to note is that anybody who is going to stay out and run this race on a full tank of fuel, as I think we can expect some of our top drivers and the leaders of this race to do, they're going to have to save fuel under yellow and treat it almost like you would an open wheel car, where you have to, tweak fuel maps, grab the clutch, make sure that you are limiting your fuel burn on those yellow flag laps to make sure you've got enough to make it happen at the end. Is all of a sudden, look at Stephen Wilson, who has run down Will Rogers, and it's no longer tenths we're worried about, it's car lengths.
Yeah, and that's, to your point there, James, that's going to be a very vital, at least a very crucial part of this race, because if you're able to save fuel once the caution comes out at around the 30-minute mark, or around 30 minutes to go, right in the halfway mark, it is going to be for them to try and put it in different parts of the course, because they're going to be behind the pace truck. They're going to be kind of pacing around a little bit, so they're able to push in that clutch. They're able to have a lot of that time. But then how much time do you really have to save enough, or are you really able to save enough? You could try to go for the halfway mark. You could try to save, but maybe it doesn't even end up at the marker that you want it at. So these drivers have to pretty much maximize their efficiency without going too slow, without making any mistakes. And that's going to be probably the biggest portion for them if they want to even make it. See one car all the way down on the uphill section. But I guess back to what you said, James, about the top three, they're starting to scrunch up together, and it is not getting any easier for Will Rogers.
Especially because we're starting to see the leaders hit some lap traffic. You see one car just ahead of the 65 machine. That's Brett Baldock in the 4, who's going to get put a lap down over the next few moments. And Baldock won't even make himself part of the equation. He'll pull over to the side down the San Posey straight and let the leaders pass by on the outside. Nearly a moment there for Brad Perez, who did not catch Brett Baldock in a good spot, but Baldock stays down the bottom and gets out of the way. And then you look just a little bit further back behind the race leaders, and you see this group ahead of Adam Cabot. There are lap cars mixed in with some of the machines you see out of his windshield. There are cars that Cabot is racing, but it's hard to tell just from these angles who you are trying to fight and who is trying to get out of the way.
Yeah, and that's going to be something we'll look at. But that also helps with the relative, too, because you're going to be looking at the blue names and saying, okay, these guys are a lap down versus the drivers in the white color names, that they'll be the ones that you're actually fighting for position. But with the way the separation game is kind of played into this event, it's going to be a little harder to see kind of who you really want to push your equipment against. Because let's say you're going to try to go for a lap car to go by him, but then that lap car doesn't really want to let you by, especially if you're the leader. Then you guys can get aggressive, and then maybe that helps the guys in second, third, fourth on back to start catching up and make those passes, make some critical moves before maybe they go down pit road or maybe not. So that's also going to help in that case. But I think luckily, James, most drivers that have been a lap down, they're mostly staying out of the way and at least giving these drivers most space.
You've got some drivers off pace or a lap down as we look on board with Josh Slate in a very, very good fight for about the 12th and 13th spot. Dylan Welch is in there. There's contact a little bit further back. Couldn't tell who that was that got sent around. I think that was Dylan Welch himself who got turned after bouncing off of another Miata in the Big Bend. But trouble there for Welch. Too looks like some damage to the right front suspension on his machine, so he'll need a faster pair as Stephen Wilson continues to chase down the race leader, and they continue to hit lap traffic at awkward spots. That was nearly disastrous for Wilson, who had to do everything possible to make sure that he didn't run over Chris Wilner, and that allowed Brad Perez to get a run down the San Posey straight. And you can move the 38 machine up into second now.
Take it 3 wide with the lap car. Why not to turn one? As Perez goes by, you right on board with the rear end of his Miata as Wilson tries to make sure it happens. I believe I saw Will Rogers tap the grass a little bit, may have lost him some time. I think, James, they're not really able to get to Will Rogers, at least close enough to make moves. They've been kind of keeping him in his crosshairs, so maybe that is enough. Coming to the halfway mark where they can kind of keep him in the sights and not really let him run away. But they're not necessarily putting too much pressure on him either. So for Will Rogers, I'm not sure whether he's really worried about these two, especially with how aggressive they've been and how at least pounceable they've been to go for these positions, go for second, go for third, whatever may have you. So Rogers hasn't really been, I think, pressured at this point. It's really going to be when we get to the halfway mark and the caution flies that they're going to bunch up, and I think Will Rogers will have at least more to be worried with them behind.
They're certainly going for it, but I get the sense that there may be a little bit more left in the tank for both Perez and Wilson in terms of aggression, that they can turn it up another notch if need be, and I don't think we've seen the most aggressive parts of their driving just yet. Now, also of note, a few laps ago, Preston Pardis and Ryan Vargas came down pit road, so they are buried in the 30s on timing and scoring, but they were up around P10 when they came in for service, so you would think that they may end up staying out over the course of the competition caution that is upcoming, and they'll gain the track position, and we'll see who decides to come in under that yellow to make sure they've got the fuel to make it to the end. Back on board with Stephen Wilson, who now trails Brad Perez in the runner-up spot, and Rogers, the race leader, now about 1.2 seconds ahead of these two. And they've been able to run down Rogers a little by little over the course of a 5 or 6 lap span. They've been faster than Rogers as this race has progressed. And same sort of deal just about. Not quite, though, this time. Everybody within a tenth of one another there. So not quite the gains that I think these two would want to see just yet. But we'll keep our eyes peeled and see whether or not they close the gap before the competition caution comes out. A little bit further back here, we see some door-to-door action. Looks like Gabe Wood is in a pretty good fight. This with TJ Majors in the mix and Josh Balicki also part of this trio, working their way down the no-name straight and towards the uphill.
This is a way battle for P4, but maybe a train if Anthony Alfredo can at least get close enough to TJ Majors, Gabe Wood, and Joshua Balicki as they head back through the right-hander. Alfredo, though, is just a couple of seconds behind, but if these guys make some mistakes, then maybe that will allow Alfredo to go forward. And nice battle here as TJ Majors to maybe go to the inside, can use the draft of the final quarter to go back to turn 1, but I think we'll maybe look back up front. Stefan Wilson says, tag team, I'm back in front. He goes to second.
Wilson got a run down the Sam Posey straight. He'd been lining that up for about the last 2 or 3 laps, and it finally stuck that time by. So Wilson back to P2, Perez back to 3rd, and these two clear of that battle between Balicki, Wood, and Majors to the tune of about 4 seconds. That's the gap between Perez in 3rd as there's contact a little bit further back, and Majors and Gabe Wood get into it with one another as you see the remnants of the incident on your screens now, but they just tried to race for the same space. We'll see if we might be able to get a replay of that coming out of the no-name straight, but these two coming together, and that separates what had been a 3-car battle and leaves Josh Balicki in sole possession of 4th.
Well, I guess it's exactly what I just said. If they make a small mistake trying to fight for position, that's going to leave the door wide open for the 38 of Anthony Alfredo. You see the contact here, and very peculiar crash there as TJ Majors trying to get straight with Gabe Wood spinning around right in front of him. Almost a little bit of hood wheel action as he was kind of going over, but they seem to go right for the grass, trying to recuperate themselves, and then Anthony Alfredo just goes by. There's the leader, though, James. In trouble. That's Brad Perez on the final quarter of the Sam Posey straight. He's got wheel damage. He's towing it to pit road.
Let's see what happened to Brad Perez here. Couldn't tell if there was a major incident, but all of a sudden he ended up off in the grass, and there was a major incident indeed. 2 cars wrecked right in front of him. It was Greg Stumpf, and Will Rogers, the race leader, indeed got caught up in this too. So that now moves Josh Balicki up into the race lead.
You're right on board here. You see them get collected. Oh, you see Brad just trying to avoid it and about to go getting into the grass. You see the wheel damage already. You'll take a look at it here. Right in the grass, here we go. You see coming back up the track right into Will Rogers, and then there goes Brad Perez. Stefan Wilson kind of able to get by, and a big hit for all 3 of those drivers. You take a look at it once more, just a little bit loose here, and I think that's about where you're going up the hill to the crest, Pike. So I think it's exactly what we said, just making sure that the car is straight by the time you get there, and that wasn't the case. There's Greg Stumpf in the 78 who got involved, of course, into that wall, and that takes 2 of the leaders out. So unfortunate as they were trying to fight for the win and maybe save fuel at the 30-minute mark.
All that track position gone too, and that was all off of Stumpf, who lost control at the top end of the hill, was trying to save it, then overcorrected directly into the path of Will Rogers, who had absolutely nowhere to go. He T-bones the 78, and then Perez gets clipped by Rogers as Rogers was careening off the fence, and he had nowhere to go really either. Perez almost made it and then just missed it. And Stefan Wilson also in trouble too.
And then that's how quickly things can happen here at Landmark Park. And we talk about some of the space that you have. Some of the corners seem a little bit wider, but there's a lot of corners on this track, James, that are very, very tight. So if you make a mistake, you go back onto the track, there's not much space that you have to maneuver if you want to get around it. As you run on board, here's a driver a little bit further back through the field, but one we haven't talked about since the grid. That's the 28 of Ron Capps, the NHRA funny car driver, working through the final corners. He currently tries to run in where it seems to be right now. I'm trying to look for him right now on the grid. He seems to be in P12, just outside of the top 10, but he's plus 14 since the drop of the green flag.
And Ron Capps is a very quiet run. There's been a lot of shakeup amongst the top 5 after that incident between Greg Stumpf, Will Rogers, Brad Perez and company. Balicki, Alfredo, Schildhaus, Raja Caruth, and TJ Majors now your top 5. So at Majors in particular, there was that contact with Gabe Wood, and you thought he might have dropped back towards maybe 10th or so. But after the incident with the leaders in Stumpf, they end up in a decent spot after all. And here goes Gabe Wood to the outside of TJ Majors again, as Majors is going to come down pit road for service.
It's going to be the first time we see TJ Majors down pit road, and with that incident they had a little bit earlier, you figure he's going to probably go for some damage repair too that may lengthen his pit stop a little bit, knowing though he's going to be good for the end of this race, and he's most going to stay out with about 4 minutes left until we get that halfway caution, though very big in terms of the battle right there up front. That was Gabe Wood, who almost about had contact with the driver all the way in front, one of the lap cars, as he was trying to chase down Roger Carruth in the 63. And there's him and Joshua Slate trying to work for position. Boy, that was very close. James, again, no space in that section of the course. It's not easy.
Not easy in the slightest, as we now go on board with the Washington, D.C. native Raja Carruth, who has put together a solid run of the top 10, taking advantage of some of the incidents ahead of him. He's had a relatively clean race and some fun battles with Kligerman Sports' David Schildhaus as well. Here comes Carruth looking to the inside of Big Ben with a big send down to the inside, and Schildhaus will let Carruth go and try and pull the crossover back at the exit of Big Bend as they work their way through the stadium section, as it were, here at Lime Rock. Officially, the left-hander, then the right-hander onto the no-name straight.
Yeah, that was a good move by Roger there. And you figure Schildhaus is probably going to go and take some retaliation after a little bit of their contact just to go by and stay in position. But I guess he's going to tuck back and wait a little bit more. Here's Devin Henry. A nice paint scheme for his MX-5 Miata, the motorsports reporter, of course, out of Arizona, trying to get his way through the field right now and currently sits in the top 10, James. So with a lot of the drivers going down pit road, with some drivers having some incidents, guys like Devin Henry, who, at least for him, when I talked to him last night, he said he was probably expecting to be around the midfield. He's going to be in the top 10 at this point.
About 15 seconds away from the competition caution. David Schildhaus will get down pit road just in time. And you figure if that yellow comes out at the 30-minute mark, that's perfect timing from the driver of the 20 car to get his machine into the box right now, because we should see the yellow flag come within the next few moments. And Josh Bilicki should be the race leader when this yellow flag comes out to bring us our halfway competition caution, barring the unexpected.
Yeah, we've seen some of those incidents happen here tonight at this point, but as for what's going to be that caution, it's going to be all about, again, like you said, James, a little bit earlier, track position. If you're going to be here in a certain position, you want to gain some, and you don't want to lose any, because as soon as that happens, maybe we'll have drivers stay out, maybe we'll have drivers go down pit road. There's going to be that big split decision. So wherever you are on track, wherever you sit, even if it's behind or ahead of some lap cars, that's going to matter in the bigger picture. As Sanchez almost had a little bit of a moment coming to the final corner, almost had a meeting there with the tire barrier, but he seems to be okay. But I think at this final minute and a half, James, everyone's going to try to still be in their rhythm and gain as most track position if they can get it.
We're going to Justin Malillo out of Traction.GG, the man behind the 53 machine out of Port Jefferson Station, New York. Well, another one of those drivers that's been very quiet, but very solid, very consistent, decent pace in his Miata, and currently sitting just on the edge of the top 10 behind the king of the lead stream, Garrett Smithley in the 52 machine, the driver for Rick Ware Racing, working their way around the lap traffic of Gary Sexton. They also have Garrett Miller in the 36 in tow.
A lot of these guys going for position. Remember, we talked about, or at least Taylor and Justin talked about on the pre-race show, Justin Malillo tied in a three-way tie for what seems to be 11th right now on the points, one of the final spots to get into the Monday Night Racing playoffs. And there's only about, give or take, 5 more races until the playoffs begin. So for Justin Malillo, if he can try to get here, gain as much points as he can, that's going to be big to get the tiebreaker over Sexton and David Schildhaus. And you see Anthony Alfredo and Roger Carruth, both of them going to step down pit road for the first time tonight.
Same sort of idea for those two, trying to beat the yellow flag and get their pit stop done before that comes out. We'll see if anybody else has a shot at it before we get the yellow flag, which should come in theory in, maybe 3 seconds or so, as we'll cross the halfway point of this race. We hit halfway, waiting for the call from race control, Josh Mendoza. There it is, yellow flag out, and competition caution is out here in the Beef Jerky Unlimited Challenge for Monday Night Racing at Lime Rock Park.
Well, there it is. Seems as though we're going to bunch the field together, and that was a very close call for both Alfredo and Carruth to pit at that time. You got to wonder if they were able to get out of pit road in enough time, and you see actually Alfredo coming out of pit road right now, as Roger Carruth also still down pit road, going to be exiting at this point. So as the yellow comes out, they step down pit road. That may have been very risky for both of them, James.
keep our eyes peeled and see how long it is. Not too long before these leaders get caught up with the pace car. Pace car's on the no-name straight, and your leaders working towards the left and the right-hander as the field begins to cycle around our caution mobile and get everybody organized, lined up, and set for at least a pit window in which we would think the top 10 drivers outside of Stephen Wilson will likely go ahead and come in for service if they so choose, or they've done enough fuel saving, they may have the opportunity to stay out and make it without pitting at all. It's possible. It just takes a decent amount of skill, as we heard a little bit earlier from Justin Prince.
And so we'll wait a little bit, at least in this point, James, where you see the pace car. There he is. So we'll get everybody all together. Some lap cars are going to find their way around. So I reckon it's going to take a little bit of time before we kind of gather everybody up for our next restart. But here's going to be the call. Joshua Balicki going to go down pit road for anybody behind. Gabe Wood does not go down. Joshua Slate is going to try and go in. Brandon Brown still a little bit of ways before pit road. So we'll see if he ends up on that side as well. But a call for Joshua Balicki to go down pit road. Justin, you have a little bit more on that.
Yes, indeed, and several drivers, keep in mind, who pit before that caution flag, including Anthony Alfredo in particular, had originally asked his crew chief, Brian LaPrade, for several laps, do we come down and pit with the circumstance? And that was a discussion point for a good 2 to 3 laps, where they all had it factor in with everyone else starting to come in around them. Right now, he is currently scored amongst the top 20 on the racetrack. An interesting sequence for Anthony Alfredo, as several drivers going to feel like it appears that they do not want to save the gas just in case. Wood taking that risk.
Gabe Wood stays out, Mark Revilla stays out, and as the field continues to circulate under caution, we'll keep our eyes peeled on our Bryant Shock Technologies in-race reporter as he comes out of pit road and finishes off his service. This time it's a reporter for the Hockey News and racing fan by moonlight, Stephen Ellis out of Toronto, Ontario. Stephen, this is a bit of a different combo than what we've seen to a lot of Monday night racing events in prior weeks. What do you make of the MX-5 at Lime Rock Park? He's so excited, he's silent. Kenneth Bueno.
I am sorry. Yes, I've never been good at this car, never been good at this track, but it's been a fun race. I think the competition's been pretty competitive. I think that I had some damage in that run because I guess some guy decided he wanted to hit me a couple times, but I think it's been a lot of fun from what I've seen.
How entertaining is it knowing that this isn't necessarily a power car, but this is a momentum machine, and how much brain power are you spending just trying to line up those runs, especially down the San Posi straight, but even coming uphill as well? There are more than a few spots where you can out drag race somebody and get the spot, no?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I'm used to running like prototypes and stuff, and those are much different machines, much quicker, much harder to drive. And I think it's been pretty fun to kind of try to learn these cars. It feels almost like we're driving like a Porsche Cup car or like an Xfinity car, the way these things turn, and you're really gonna have to make the move. So I think it's been this is a tough track, especially turn 1, turn 2. Those are not easy turns. It's a lot of runoff, and if you get hit in the grass, you're kind of in a tough spot. So I think it's fun trying to figure out how to make the most of it.
Any anticipation and any thoughts on what we're going to see in the second half of this race? And do you have a game plan as to how you want to survive this?
I think it's going to be calamity when we go green. Turn 1, I think everyone was really keeping it calm, but we're going to have a lot of fast guys here at the back that I think are going to try to make their way through, and I think that's going to be it's going to be entertaining, I'd have to say.
We'll see. We'll let you get back to it. Thanks so much for the time, and we'll see if we can chat with you a little bit later.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Stephen Ellis, your Bryant Shock Technologies in-race reporter this evening, as he gets set to go back green flag racing. We will take a quick break before the green comes out once again, and we continue with the second half of the Beef Jerky Unlimited Challenge for Monday Night Racing. You're watching all the action here from iRacing's virtual Lime Rock Park on Podium Esports.
There's a place where fire and flavor are celebrated, where grilling traditions and new techniques are perfected. Here in Big Green Egg Country, you can grill it, roast it, smoke it, or bake it. It's the most versatile grill you'll ever own. Simple to light, easy to use, comes with a free lifetime warranty. Have it delivered to your door by a certified dealer in your community and start enjoying the ultimate cooking experience. Shop online for home delivery at biggreenegg.com. That's biggreenegg.com.
Welcome back to coverage of the Beef Jerky Unlimited Challenge from Monday Night Racing on Podium Esports. Tonight's broadcast is always brought to you by iRacing, the world's premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in Australian supercars, IndyCar, IMSA, NASCAR, the World of Outlaws, and more. And for more information, you can visit iRacing.com to get on the virtual racetrack today. With over 170,000 drivers on the service and over 90 laser scan tracks and cars to choose from. And we're getting a few more tracks in this upcoming new build coming out next Tuesday, Kenneth Bueno. And the one that'll matter to folks in the Monday Night Racing corner of the world, without question, Nashville Super Speedway is going to make it, and we will see its M&R debut about a month and a half after it arrives on the service. July 26th, we're taking the super late models to the big track at Nashville after we got the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway last September.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun having the Nashville Super Speedway as a new part, or at least returning to NASCAR competition in this year, 2021, and actually not far from now, a couple weeks from now, we'll have that race in real life happen. So it's going to be fantastic, the fact that we're going to have it here on Sim before it makes its debut with the Cup cars in real life, and the fact that we'll be able to go for the National Super Speedways with the super late models in this series. We were going into this season kind of questioning whether we were going to use that or the Fairground Speedway, but I think, James, to have a new track and have that shown with the super late models later this season, especially in the middle of the playoffs in the round of 13, I think that's going to be very exciting for sure.
Should be a lot of fun. Also, potentially on the docket, Red Bull Ring in Austria, home to the Austrian Grand Prix. That track, very, very popular with the road racers on iRacing, and I wouldn't rule out the possibility of seeing that circuit in a future Monday Night Racing season. But we'll have to wait until Series 4 for that. It will be Nashville Super Speedway that we will most certainly see in Series 3. Only a month and a half away, and you look at the calendar, that'll be the closing race in the first round of the playoffs, the round of 13. So we'll go from 13 to 10 after the race at Nashville that evening. You can catch all the action, of course, here on Podium 2 on Twitch, as well as the Podium Esports Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter pages. While we continue into the yellow flag, we remind you that tonight's broadcast is brought to you by Tufco Flooring, an industrial flooring company specializing in custom floors and drains. Tufco doesn't believe in the one-size-fits-all approach, and neither should you. They listen to your needs and requirements and develop custom solutions for every client. And for more information, you can visit their website at tufcoflooring.com. Lights should be off on the pace car this time around, and I believe at this point we are going to get the field bunched back up, so we should get the green this time by. It is Stephen Wilson, David Schildhaus, TJ Majors, Josh Balicki, and Josh Slate. Your top five, followed by Garrett Smithley, Brandon Brown, Justin Malillo, Preston Pardis, and Robbie Lyons. But yellow flag has been thrown for one more lap, so we're going to extend the yellow flag. And if we've got an extended yellow flag, let's go ahead and run through the full field rundown as it stands and tell you where your favorite driver runs before we get the second half of this race going. So Wilson, Schildhaus, Majors, Balicki, Slate, like we said, in the top five. Garrett Smithley, 6th, 7th to Brandon Brown, 8th to Justin Malillo, Preston Pardis running in 9th, and 10th Kenneth Bueno is where you'll find Robbie Lyons.
And behind them, Devin Henry will be 11th, seemingly on this next restart, with James Bickford behind him in 12th. Steve Enfant will have the 13th running position, with Ron Capps behind him in 14th. Brad Perez, we saw him in that incident earlier tonight. He, at least for now, will be starting at the edge of the top 15. Anthony Alfredo, who pitted a little bit earlier before the caution, he'll be 16th. 17th will belong to the 17 car of Adam Cabot. Garrett Miller will be 18th. 19th will belong to the 6 of Ryan Vargas. And JD Motorsports' Gabe Wood will be at the edge of the top 20 so far.
Raja Caruth holds the 21st spot at this time. 22nd belongs to Mark Rubilis. Stephen Ellis, our Bryant Shock Technologies in-race reporter, is 23rd, and 24th is Ford Martin. Chad Reed, CR22 from Supercross, is 25th. 26th belongs to Podium Esports' own Gary Sexton. Matt Stolnick, the Daytona winner to open Season 3, is 27th. 28th belongs to Dylan Welch. 29th, the Brett Baldock. And P30 is where you'll find the 57 of Seth Egger.
And back to 31st is Mike Clay, who's the last car right now on the lead lap before you'll find at least, well, the driver who just got the wave round to be on the lead lap, Chris Winter, who was 1 lap down in 32nd. 33rd is Nick Sanchez, who's 7 laps down, not on the racetrack. Will Rogers, your former race leader to start this race, he got wrecked out. He is 34th, 8 laps down. Parker Kligerman disconnected. He is 35th, 9 laps down with Greg Stump, 18 laps down in 36th. He's on pit road. 37th to Michael Massey, 38th to Drew Welker. Paul Sutton will be 39th. It seems as though DJ Cummings was not able to start the race, but he's the final driver on the grid at this point.
So there's your full field rundown. Lights are off in the pace car, and I think this time we won't delay the restart. So before we go green flag racing, let's go back down to pit road and to Justin Prince.
And one of the main things David Shotos told me before the race was he felt his Indiana 500K was bad through and through, from qualifying to the finish for that race. But he told me one thing. His approach for tonight was the same every time they go race. Do what I have to do in order to put myself in a position to win. He feels like he's in a good position to be able to win. It's just a matter of how much time he's going to have to be able to try and make a move. That's what's the most critical right now for David Schildhaus, who'll be starting in 2nd position for this restart.
Time is not something they will have a lot of. We are going to be down to about 18 minutes left of the hour, plus 1 lap, depending on where the leader gets the white flag when we get to that point. But the pace car will come off and head on to pit road this time. Green flag will come back out. Stephen Wilson will lead us across the Sam Posey strength and down to turn 1. And the question is, where does everybody land in this, and how much calamity do we see through the Big Bend?
We saw 3 wide as they headed back to turn 1. TJ Majors trying to make a move, but there's contact between 2nd and 3rd. That's Schildhaus and Balicki made bumper contact as they were going through the Big Bend. They'll make contact again, but Schildhaus able to fend through as they go back to the left-hander.
Balicki tried to get clear of Schildhaus as they went through Big Bend, but Schildhaus was able to maintain the track position through the left-hander and the right-hander, and they will be door-to-door coming down the no-name straight. Schildhaus looks like he got a little bit better run, getting a bump draft from TJ Majors as they head towards the uphill.
And that's exactly what you want to see for David Schildhaus. Let him clear and then get away from anybody else. Although you see TJ Majors trying to tag along behind as you ride on board, heading through the right-hander and through the final corner to the Sam Posey straight. Now lean streams. Garrett Smith in the 52 might put himself in this conversation as well.
How about Garrett Smithley up there in the 5th position as we see one car nearly slide off? I think that might be Josh Slate, who just about lost it. Preston Pardis will go up to 6th. Wilson's clear of everybody, though, by about 2 seconds. He got an excellent launch off that opening lap of the restart. Schildhaus 2nd. Majors fighting off Balicki. Smithley there, too. Then Pardis, then Slate. And how about Brandon Brown, who's had a rash of bad luck to start off Season 3 of Monday Night Racing, but the Race XR machine driving the Sim Seats Miata, holding a spot in the top 10, currently 8th.
And he started in 11th, so not too far away from the top 10. Has been trying to get these positions. And like I said a little bit earlier, restarts is going to be very, very important when you go for a position like this. Because like we saw in the opening stint, once everybody kind of settled themselves through a rhythm, you saw a lot of the distance being spread between most drivers. And then, of course, you had the compounding lap traffic to go with it, drivers getting into incidents and so far and so forth. But with guys like Brandon Brown, he can use restarts like this to gain as much track position and, of course, keep himself in tow with all these drivers at the front of the field. So he's going to have that opportunity, and Preston Pardis also has that opportunity as well. He started just a little bit in the latter half of the top 10, and he's used this to gather 2 positions at this point.
Wilson, Schildhaus, just about even on lap times. Wilson was a 10th faster. Looking back from Josh Balicki's rear deck to the nose of TJ Majors, Mazda Miata, and Preston Pardis. We can't leave out the SCCA Spec Miata national champion, who has climbed his way up a few spots since the restart. Now is right in the thick of this battle for 3rd, and he's dragging Garrett Smithley with him.
And I was going to watch him on this restart because, of course, with that incident, with the way things gone, with that mistake made it earlier in this race, he got buried in traffic, and then he wasn't really able to gather the positions. He was at 9th or 10th where Ryan Vargas was in the opening stint of this race, and now using this restart, and of course the speed that he's carried all night long so far, out of what we've seen, he's now pushing himself into the top 5, and I'm to see if he's going to start to make moves on the top 4. He's already about there with TJ Majors as they head back to turn 1. See a couple drivers battling behind. That was Anthony Alfredo going for position, or for 18th right now.
Really, really tight battle around the 20th position here. Looking on board with Alfredo as he tries to run down Steve Alfont. Garrett Miller, big moves all over the place as Alfredo had a good run going at Sonoma. Got caught up in a little bit of an incident with Daniel Suarez toward the end and put down what was a promising run for the driver, the number 38 for Front Row Motorsports in the NASCAR Cup Series. So he's got road racing on his brain. We'll see if he can make a move. We look back at Preston Pardus trying to chase down TJ Majors. Still nothing yet amongst this group for third, but the moment they leap into action, we'll come right back to this and see where they sit. Maybe, just maybe, we might see Pardus going to run here down the Posey Straight. We'll go back to Raja Caruth trying to work over Justin Malillo, and Robbie Lyons just ahead of the 53 machine.
And we're seeing many of these small packs now starting to develop, and that's what we saw in that opening set. I think if we can take away from the first 30 minutes, it's that there are going to be a lot of these small packs that develop. You're going to have the main first pack for first, of course, and the first, second, third, maybe even fourth, and then you have it all the way back to the top 10, and of course you have it all the way back to the top 15, which is where Justin Malillo sits, as there goes Raja Caruth, Anthony Alfredo also going to push their way by. So as they're going to continue, this is that good spot, again, on that restart to gain more positions, to keep charging up to the field for Brad Perez. That's been the opportunity. He got around Brandon Brown, he's around Garrett Smithley, and now he's up to Joshua Slate in the one car.
Going to be all about the run down the Sam Posey Straight. Wild run from Garrett Smithley there. He'll get on the grass. There may be an opportunity for Brandon Brown to make a move just behind Perez. You see those two going nose to tail down the Sam Posey Straight as Perez tries to get a run on Josh Slate. Should get a run on Josh Slate. Will get a run on Josh Slate. Go down to the inside of Big Ben and Brandon Brown with a huge sin behind them. Nearly cleared out Garrett Smithley and somehow managed to slide right between Slate and Smithley and didn't make a dent in either of them.
Well, we called up the yeet to turn one. I think he tried that and at least almost about made it stick with Garrett Smithley. He just does not want to get any damage on his Miata, does not want to compound on anything that's gone on with his car so far. He does not meant to make his night worse at this point, but he's okay. It seems as though everybody else is okay. I'm liking what I'm seeing though here, James. Out of this top 5 or so, this pack is going to be very important once you move to the end of this race. I know there's about 12 minutes left, so there's not that much time to try and catch up to the leader, but these are very interesting positions to go for. And here's also an interesting position for Gary Sexton in the top 20. Talked about him a little bit earlier with Justin Malillo and David Schildhouse. They're in a 3-way tie for 11th, but the final spots to get into the Monday Night Racing presented by Napa playoffs. Gary Sexton needs a lot of these points, especially with about 5 races left until we get to those playoffs.
And Sexton could use the points boost. Schildhouse could use the points boost too as we look on board with Pardus and we see this train that Schildhouse is currently fronting. He's got Balicki there, he's got Majors there, and then Pardus is the caboose on that 4-car train with about a 2-second gap or so. So James Bickford, Brad Perez, and Josh Slate in 6th, 7th, and 8th. But yeah, Schildhouse, I know he's been pretty vocal on the radio, but we'll turn to see if we can get Justin Prince in. Any word off of Schildhouse and what he said in the second half of this race?
Ever since the green flag flew, he's gone from very vocal and very loose on the radio at times and on his stream to now being very dialed in and serious. Some of the most serious looking faces he's had this entire race. But with this race, he hasn't really said too much in the past 5 minutes. That's how dialed in he is right now with that race car.
I think all the action that you see around that 20 car on the racetrack tells you all you need to know about why he's been so quiet. He's had a rearview mirror full of Josh Balicki and now TJ Majors, and that could become also potentially Preston Pardus if Majors can get the move around the 20 machine. But all things being said, Kenneth, you just hinted at it. It would be a very good point save for Schildhouse, and I don't think he'd complain all that much given how close he is to the cutoff line, because you do have to start thinking about the Monday Night Racing playoffs for Season 3. I think now that we turned the corner, we've cleared the Memorial Day break. It's the stretch run to finish off the regular season and be part of the top 13 by the time we finish off the race on July 5th, featuring the machines in the NASCAR Xfinity Series at Chicagoland Speedway.
And it only takes one race to put yourself on the upswing, James, because we saw it last week in Indianapolis. We saw a semi-consistent season by Adam Cabot, and then all of a sudden he gets the win in Indianapolis, and now he's a part of the playoffs, and he can ride that momentum all the way through. For David Schildhouse, Of course, he doesn't have that win, but with the points that he's gotten, or he can get after tonight, if he can put himself in some good place for momentum and stay ahead of Gary Sexton and Justin Melillo, who he's tied with right now, that's going to give him that boost. And then as the season progresses, as we get more races, Shieldhouse is going to be in turn a lot more confident in his ability. He's going to be a lot more comfortable racing against these drivers and going for those points. He's not going to be as hesitant to do so. Again, one race is all it takes. If he can get on that momentum, that's going to be the best place for him as he tries to hold off Preston Pardus.
Preston Pardus there working the rear bumper of the 20 machine. If anybody gets around Shieldhouse, it's been down this Sam Posey straight, the front straightaway, named after the longtime motorsports announcer and someone who dearly beloved by many people in the racing community. Majors with the little look there to try and block Shieldhouse off. Pardus trying to look to the inside of Shieldhouse down the straight. Couldn't find any room. Balicki, on the other hand, hasn't managed to get away all that much from any three of these. Makes me wonder if maybe TJ Majors or Preston Pardus might be the fastest car amongst this quartet.
They might be, and they're just waiting at this point, James, to go for these moves, because just how tight Lime Rock can get, you don't really want to force yourself 2, maybe 3 wide in certain parts of the course, because you know that if you go side by side, there is a large possibility for contact to be made, especially in the Big Bend, at the back end of the course, and in a handful of other places. You want to get to the places where it's a lot wider, and especially off this final corner, that's where you can build all that momentum, get that high speed action off of this Mazda Miata, and then be drafting right behind the driver in front. Go for this as David Shieldhouse tries to make a move underneath TJ Majors to turn 1.
Here comes Shieldhouse back underneath Majors, and he might bring Pardus in tow. Shieldhouse should have a look and should be clear, and indeed clears Majors out of Big Bend. Have to make sure you get your car ahead of the other driver before you clear that. Otherwise, you're going to be door-to-door through the left-hander and the right-hander. But Shieldhouse makes the move, but the 20 car back to P3. Preston Pardus off that pass may have some momentum, may be able to line something up as they climb the uphill. Maybe set it up through West Bend at the Sam Posey Straight, perhaps, if you're the 90.
You could probably do so, especially as I mentioned a little bit earlier. That's going to be key. Using that momentum again. Pardus can do so. He's gotten good runs off of there before, so why not have it again? And as close as he is with both Shieldhouse and TJ Majors, here it is. He'll go off the final corner. There's the look. There's the draft. He can gather down the front straightaway. We saw Shieldhouse do it the last time by. Does Pardus make that move to the inside? The answer is yes. The 90 car to the inside of TJ Majors as well.
Pardus with his big moment to try and get around TJ Majors to the inside at Big Bend. Clear when they come off corner exit. Majors back to 5th. Preston Pardus now up to 4th.
A nice move by Preston Pardus. That's exactly what it's going to take. But remember, we have some drivers also in this mix that may put themselves in here. Brad Perez is stuck in the 6th position. James Pickford in 7th. Joshua Slate to 8th. These guys a little bit further behind. But like I said with Anthony Alfredo, it's going to take one mistake for the time to just clear all the way to 0, and these guys can get the free positions, get those passes. Because remember, James, we're in the final 6.5 or so minutes in this race, so time is running out. And I reckon for many of them, James, it's going to be a lot more about pushing pushing the issue, going for aggression rather than comfortability, and go for those moves now. Send it at this point.
Oh, here comes Preston Pardus. He got a huge run on Shieldhouse down the Sam Posey Straight. This should be pretty easy as they come into the corner. Look at TJ Majors, who tried to follow suit and checked up before he got into the rear quarter panel of the 20. But Pardus to 3rd now, and Balicki to 2nd. Might be a little bit too late for Pardus to go get the race lead. It's a 3.4-second gap from Balicki to Stephen Wilson out front, but certainly a podium finish in Preston Pardus' sight.
And right now, you're riding on board with the 63 of Raja Caruth, Washington, D.C. native, trying to make a move on Brandon Brown. A little slow out of that corner goes Brown. Caruth going to try and dive his nose in, and Caruth going to go for the inside. We saw him 2 weeks ago, James, be very aggressive at Indianapolis, had a shot at the race win, but had contact up front, went right for the wall in turn 1, and had just heartbreak. I remember watching his stream and his POV as he was going to the wall, just a straight face here. This is very good if you're Raja Caruth right now, as he tries to go underneath the driver, and he actually makes contact with one of the lap cars, and they got sent to the final corner.
Couldn't tell who that was immediately, but that was Michael Massey who got sent around as Carruth went to the inside to make the pass. Massey, well back towards the field, currently scored in the 37th position, so no major effect so far as the leaderboard is concerned, but maybe a few hurt feelings there between Carruth and Massey as Raja continues his climb towards the top 10. Now in the top 10, actually just made it into P10 with the move on Brandon Brown. Looking back at David Schildhouse to see if he's got anything left for any one of TJ Majors or Preston Pardus, and whether or not any of those two have something for Josh Bilicki also remains to be seen. But Stefan Wilson has maintained the gap of about 3.4, 3.5 seconds over the course of the last 10 minutes or so. It's execution for Wilson. I think that's all that stands between him and the victory tonight. But of course, anything can happen as we see contact there in the back of the field. Cars everywhere, all over the place at the top of the hill. Big incident there. Gary Sexton, Justin Melillo. We'll take a look at the replay, see where that started, who that caught. But plenty of drivers turned around. One car, I think, got loose at the top of the hill and ended up just careening all over the place. And I believe the guilty culprit was Garrett Miller in the 36.
It was Garrett Miller, and I think he may have had some help from Anthony Alfredo. You're on board with the 13 of Sexton. You see them go side by side before they head up the large crest in the hill. And this right-hander, you'll see it from this roll bar cam. I think you'll have the best look at this one as they go up the corner. There's Adam Cabot up ahead. There's the contact as they gone up the hill. Nowhere for Gary to Sexton to go.
Gary Sexton had nowhere to go. Justin Melillo got to the back of Sexton, and Steven Ellis got to the back of Melillo. So, trio of drivers with pretty significant damage, and that's a tough end of the race for our Bryant Shock Technologies in-race reporter as we come towards the closing stages of tonight's Beef Jerky Unlimited Challenge. Only 3 minutes left to go. Stefan Wilson's extended the gap to 3.7 seconds, and Preston Pardus, try as he might, has not really been able to reel in Josh Bilicki. It's still holding at about 4 or 5 tenths between second and third place in this field.
That's all you're going to need. Just settle yourselves into that rhythm, slowly push yourself away, and that's what we're seeing right now with the first place car. Stefan Wilson buried within the top 3, top 5, and earlier in this race we saw the pole sitter Will Rogers pull up to about a second, maybe a little bit more, but it was second, third, fourth that was kind of keeping him in check, keeping him there, making sure he doesn't really pull away. It's been the complete opposite in the second half of this race, James. The fact that Stefan Wilson has been able to pull away and he's been able to put more time on everybody else says a lot about the performance that Wilson has with his Mazda MX-5 Miata. As Preston Pardus, I think, for the most part, him, TJ Majors, Schildhouse, and maybe even Bilicki, they might just have to keep looking for second. I think that's their goal right now if they can't catch up to Wilson in time.
Going to take some kind of incident for Wilson to be in trouble, and there's not really much lap traffic near Wilson's machine. He's got maybe about 4 or 5 seconds to Chad Reed and Ron Capps, and those two he may get before we get the white flag. We may not. Could be tight.
It could be tight. Look at the tight battle here between Gabe Wood and Roger Carruth. Saw him dig his nose into the first of the big bend, and Wood almost had an incident with him, almost made contact with his rear bumper, but seems as though they're clean. A nice run here for Gabe Wood. He's not going to make the move now, going to push him into the crest. We'll try to see how that moves as we move forward, but you see right there, the gap is about 3.3 seconds. Stefan Wilson with about a minute and a half left, looking for his first win this season.
You see the lap cars there in front of Wilson across the stripe with 1:15 left to go, which means we are likely looking at 2 laps to go in this race. As there's Preston Pardus. He finally has managed to run down Josh Bilicki in that battle for second that we may or may not have thought we might have seen. I think we might just get it here on the closing pair of laps in this race.
The question is, do we see a send out of Preston Pardus? Maybe if we see a send out of TJ Majors or Schildhouse, if they can try to make it happen. I think Pardus is gonna do the methodical approach that he's done so far in tire race, which is just let the momentum build, stay to the back bumper, and make the move to the inside. But who knows? Maybe to turn 1, he can get to the inside, make that move, but a lap car is gonna go right in front. That's gonna bunch everybody together. Almost contact there. Lap car stays out of the way. Now here comes Pardus with the opportunity in the final quarter of the Sam Posey straight.
Josh Bilicki had to give a hip check there to make sure that Mike Clay got out of the way. And Stephen Wilson will come across the line to take the white flag. Here comes Partis down the Sam Posey straight. Bilicki tries to go all the way to the inside to keep the 90 at bay, but it's not enough. Preston Partis is there to the inside, and TJ Majors tried to put in a big stint behind these two, and then crossed up right in front of David Schildhouse as Bilicki and Partis maintain that door-to-door status through the left-hander and the right-hander the final time.
As they say side by side, James, this is in turn going to help TJ Majors all the more in this segment here. You see Bilicki get by. He's able to defend. Lap car stays out of the way. Here's Schildhouse to the left-hander up the hill. He's going to try to make a draft move. Not going to do it yet as they stomp on the brakes. And it's only the final corners left, so they got to make a move now.
Maybe one more shot down the Sam Posey straight. Stephen Wilson coming down the hill. Clean run. Right behind lap traffic in Brandon Brown and Justin Malillo, but he's going to get the toe off those, and it's going to be Stephen Wilson going to victory lane on a road course once again. He wins the Beef Jerky Unlimited Challenge, and that battle for second at the line is going to go to Josh Bilicki as they make contact across the stripe. Big incident there as they gave it everything to try and be P2 at the end, but Bilicki is able to get Preston Partis and then Majors and David Schildhouse with that good points day that he needed as this field comes across the line. A few other battles that we're seeing wrap up. Garrett Smithley going to bring it home just ahead of Steve Buffon. Robbie Lyons, Adam Cabot in the mix, now waiting on Ford Martin, Mark Rabilas, Matt Stolnick, Seth Eggert, Ron Capps, and Chad Reed actually had a pretty good battle with Chris Wilner. There's a trio that we can watch for 22nd, 21st, 2nd, and 3rd coming down the hill the last time.
I guess it will. Still some battles to decide here as they go back to the final corner. Maybe the final send's not going to be there yet, so I guess the positions will remain unchanged as they head to the line. But James, you talked about it at the top of the show, 3-4 wide and fantastic battles in the real-life Mazda series. I think we saw some fantastic battles coming to the end there. Partis and Bilicki, Majors, Schildhouse, and even that battle near the rear of the field in the top 20. That was fantastic to see to the line.
Close racing, that is the hallmark of racing in the MX-5 Cup car on iRacing and in real life. Here's a look at the final results of this Beef Jerky Unlimited Challenge for Monday Night Racing. Stephen Wilson, your winner by 4.3 seconds over Josh Bilicki. Preston Partis finishes in the 3rd spot. We'll talk to all 3 of those in just a few moments. TJ Majors was 4th this evening. David Schildhouse completed the top 5. Josh Slate came home in the 6th position. 7th went to James Bickford. A nice debut for Brad Perez in the 30 machine. The Racing Spaces co-host comes home in 8th this evening. Raja Karuth in the 9th spot, and Gabe Wood for JD Motorsports with Gary Keller completes the top 10.
Brandon Brown, who got up to the top 8, ends up in the place where he started this race in 11th. Devin Henry ends up with the top 15 in 12th. Garrett Smithley will be behind him in 13th. Steve Alfont ends up coming home 14th after starting 30th on the starting grid. 28th to 15th for Robbie Lyons. So he comes across the start finish line. Adam Cabot will be 16th. 17th will go to Ford Martin. Mark Rabilas to 18th. Matt Stolnick to 19th. And Seth Eggert in the 57 caps off the top 20 tonight from Lime Rock Park.
Ron Capps out of the NHRA was 21st, Chad Reed 22nd, and Chris Wilner from the Motor Racing Network and NASCAR Productions in 23rd. Fox 46 reporter Brett Baldock was 24th, 25th to NASCAR Cup Series driver Anthony Alfredo. Justin Malillo of Traction.TG was 26th. ESPN NFL reporter Mike Clay was 27th. Garrett Miller, Stephen Ellis, and Gary Sexton completed the top 30.
Tough night for Ryan Vargas in the 6 machine. Had such a promising start, but ends up 19 laps down in 31st. Dylan Welch ends up 32nd with Greg Stump. His incident early in this race puts him 33rd to finish this one. Nick Sanchez will come home 34th, 28 laps down, with Michael Massey behind him to cap off the top 35. Pole sitter Will Rogers got into that crash early before the halfway caution. He ends up 36th. Rough night for him, as well as a rough night for Parker Kligerman. Early nice run for him. He ends up 37th. Drew Welker, Paul Sutton, and DJ Cummings end up as the final drivers of the 40-car field here for the Beef Jerky Unlimited Challenge, James.
Stacked field of MX-5s in this Beef Jerky Unlimited Challenge for Monday Night Racing on iRacing's virtual version of Lime Rock Park. We turn now to the top step of the podium and bring back to the booth Stephen Wilson. 25 machine gets it done this evening. And Stephen, this race changed entirely off of the Greg Stump incident coming down the hill shortly before we got the halfway competition caution. So just take us through your perspective. You were riding right there with Will Rogers and Brad Perez as that unfolded in front of you. What did you see, and how did you manage to find a hole through that?
Yeah, no, I was at that point just sort of biding my time right behind Will, and just kind of keeping that gap. And I think we were pulling away from the pack behind, and that was kind of the intent, was just to kind of sit there, not put any moves on Will and make us both lose time. So at that point, just sitting there, and then came through the previous turn, coming down the hill, then all of a sudden I see smoke and cars going everywhere. So at that point I just slammed on the brakes and downshifted, tried to pick a hole through there, and then I wasn't sure at that point if there was going to be a yellow because of that. I wasn't sure how many more cars got wrecked, so I immediately went straight to pit lane, got the gas I needed for the rest of the race, and then from there on it was pretty simple race.
So then the wreck actually changed the strategy far more than I think we initially suspected in the booth. We weren't sure who was going to come in at that competition caution and who might try to short pit it, but clearly looks like you and a lot of the other drivers here in the top 5 found a particular advantage into short pitting. Just for the fans at home, what sort of strategy gains do you make if you manage to beat the yellow flag and come in a little bit earlier?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to happen on, at the 30-minute mark. So, rather than pitting under yellow when everyone's bunched up, it just allows you to maintain your track position. So it might seem like we're putting ourselves at a disadvantage. I came out in a big pack of cars. I maybe lost a little bit of time there picking them off, but it's far better to do that than to have to pit under yellow when everyone's bunched up and lose a ton of positions. So yeah, no, that worked out.
Was about to ask about the lap cars, because in the second half of this race, after we got back green flag racing especially, it seemed like that was the challenge, not just for you, but for a lot of people in this field. And it seems like it's a little bit more difficult in these MX-5s, just with the lack of power. You can see them coming, but they don't necessarily have the speed or the reaction time to be able to react to you coming. So just how tricky was it to navigate the lap traffic in the final 20 minutes and make sure that you just kept this car clean to get it to victory lane?
Yeah, no, it's such a short lap as well, so here, you're coming up on cars quite often, because it's only 58 seconds pretty much the lap, and it always seems like you catch them at awkward places, and this car is such a momentum car. You got to keep the momentum up, so you're consciously you're taking a few extra risks, because if you have to check up too hard, you're going to lose at least a second, maybe more. So you're just constantly trying to avoid having to check up. So you're just trying to keep momentum, and that makes it a little bit tricky when you're coming up on cars that are a little bit off the pace.
Tricky, but at the end of the day, you get the job done, you go to victory lane, you make it happen, and get a second victory, both on road courses. Back up your victory in the Porsche 911 RSR at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve last March. Congratulations, Stefan, for picking up your first victory in Season 3 from all of us at Podium Esports, and we look forward to seeing you next Monday night.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, no, hopefully, I'm not sure how many races I have to run to be getting in the playoffs, but I know I missed a couple here the last couple of weeks, just with on track activity myself. So hoping I can finish out and do the rest of the races and get enough race starts under my belt.
And Stefan Wilson, your race winner tonight in the Beef Jerky Unlimited Challenge from iRacing's virtual Lime Rock Park. From Stefan, we turn to the man who finished runner-up. Josh Balicki was solid all night long, comes home with a second-place finish, and the chance to chat with our very own Kenneth Bueno.
Here with the 54 of Josh Balicki. And Josh, I think it came down those final minutes, that battle between yourself, Preston Pardis, TJ Majors, David Shieldhouse, all 4 of you guys tussling for each and every position to the check flag. How was that from the perspective and behind the wheel of your Mazda MX-5 Miata tonight? Josh, this is Kenneth Bueno up in the booth. You got me? Oh. Well, it seems as though we can't get Josh Balicki at this moment, but I guess for now, James, we may have to turn to Preston Pardis, who ends up in P3 tonight.
Preston Pardis is P3, and Preston, just a wild battle there. The last 20 laps, or minutes rather, you and TJ and David and Josh were all over each other. What was that like from behind the wheel? Because it looks fun watching it from our position.
it was a lot of fun. It was a better second half for me than the first half, after clobbering the wall there and stuff. But yeah, no, it was a good time battling out with Josh, like you said, TJ and David. It was kind of like a chess match there. You didn't really want to be leading, I don't think, in the pack, because it was kind of easy to draft by you. So it was just kind of playing it right, and like you said, it was a fun battle.
How fun is it to race these cars in particular here? This is a shorter road course than most of the ones that we have available to us in iRacing, but it seems like these Miatas are very well suited to the shorter road courses. Places like here, some of the shorter layouts of VIR, the international layout at Sebring, the Jefferson Circuit at Summit Point. What makes these short road courses so fun to race with this car compared to maybe a GT3 or a GTE or a prototype?
I'd just say it's really down to the car, like you said. It's very core basic, low horsepower. It's got some grip to it, but it just provides really tight racing, which that's kind of what produces the good racing out there. You can bring it to the short tracks like this, where the draft isn't as huge. I mean, you have a little bit of drafting down the front stretch, but it allows good cars and good drivers to pull away like Stefan did there. But you can go to the bigger tracks too, like Sebring and that, and you have draft playing a role. But it's just a good combo. Being lower horsepower like that, it always puts a good show on for the fans.
Good show indeed, and I think more importantly, you jump up in the playoff picture a little bit more. It's, I guess, never too early to start thinking about it, but now that we have about a month left of the playoffs, beginning to turn your mind towards that, and this combo, given your real-life exploits in Miatas, figured it'd be a good one for you to put a solid stake in the ground and kick off this summer campaign nicely.
No, definitely. I've missed the past 2 races with the prior commitments, doing the real world stuff. So it was nice to come back, and luckily come back doing this. It was nice to have a good run. Kind of hoped we could have pulled off the win there to make it a lot easier and clinch yourself in. But it's going to be fun, trying to come down to the last few races and trying to get points to, get back into the playoffs.
Fighting for victories all the way, we figure. Preston, congratulations on your podium finish this evening. Thanks as always for the time, and we look forward to seeing you next week when we go dirt racing once again.
Thank you guys for having the broadcast. You guys do an awesome job, and Ford and everyone at the league for putting this on. It's always a blast to spend Monday nights with you guys, and also got to thank the Space Station guys for all the help every time we go out, and see you guys next week.
That is two-time and defending SCCA Spec Miata national champion Preston Pardis, who comes home third this evening. We'll bring back Josh Balicki and Kenneth Bueno, see if we can't get word with our runner-up driver one more time and see if we can see what Josh Balicki has to say about tonight's race.
We're going to be here with Josh Balicki as soon as we can get him in. And Josh, this race all the way up until the end, you were fighting in that 4-horse race. You, Preston Pardis, TJ Majors, David Shieldhouse, and I believe he also left again. So I'm not sure. There he is. So fighting in that 4-horse race with Pardis, Majors, Shieldhouse, it must have been a lot of fun. How was that for you as you were trying to fend them off in the final laps?
First of all, do you guys still got me?
Yes, we got you.
Awesome. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. It brought back a lot of memories from my Spec Miata days, which Preston and I both raced together in Spec Miata. So that was a lot of fun. I've been so busy with obviously real racing lately. I haven't been able to do many of these races. So I just decided today, midday, when I got home from Sonoma, that I wanted to do this one. So I shot Fortitech. So I appreciate you guys putting these on. These guys always do a great job, professionally run series. It's always fun for me to jump on. So it was an awesome time.
And you said the real life experience with the Spec Miata is you come onto the sim, you race these Mazda Miatas here at this very racetrack, one of the more historic racetracks in the sim and in real life. What obstacle posed to you the most as a driver here in the sim, managing these Miatas around this track where it seems as though the track widens and also shortens and then gets narrow, and there seems to be many different parts of this track that you really have to master?
A couple different things. For one, keeping momentum up. Obviously, these are low horsepower cars, so you don't want to scrub too much momentum off by braking too hard. And it's all about on throttle time too. So if you can maximize your racetrack by using all the curbing, whether it's the inside curbing or the outside curbing, the exit curbing, you want to be full throttle as much as you can. So there was definitely a lot that came back to me. I haven't ran many of these cars on iRacing very much, but definitely racing these cars in real life helped me today finish second.
Certainly a good finish here. You end up in second place, and you said that you joined here midday. Are we expecting to see you maybe participate in more Monday Night Racing events moving forward?
Yeah, no, I'd absolutely love to. Obviously, it just depends on my schedule. I handle a lot of the business relations myself in the real racing world, so it just depends if I'm home. But I definitely love to. Ford puts on a great show, a great program. Obviously, we have live coverage as well, so that's cool to have. Our sponsors, we had Sim Speed Shop and UGX on the car today, so that was cool. The car mimicked an actual car that I raced in Spec Miata, in IMSA, and an actual MX-5 Cup car, so that was cool to have that car finish second.
A great finish for sure, up in second here to finish at Lime Rock Park. Well, we hope to see you soon, at least, Josh. But before we get said and done here with this Monday Night Racing presented by Napa Season, but we thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations on the second place, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Hopefully, we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, guys.
That is Josh Balicki. We were finally able to get that interview with him, James, but very happy to get that P2 and a lot of fun here at Lime Rock Park tonight.
Yeah, a lot of fun had across the board. The Miatas deliver, especially in the hands of drivers who really have a good feel for what they're doing with these cars. And I think we saw that amongst a lot of the folks in the top five, and even some of the folks who didn't necessarily get the finish that they deserved. You spare a thought for a Will Rogers or maybe even a Brad Perez who might have been a little bit better than the P8 had there not been that incident midway through. But you look at the names Balicki, Pardish, Majors, Blickford, and company. They all have real world experience with this car, and it makes sense then that we see them finishing near the front. I think it applies more to the MX-5 than it does to maybe some of the other machines that
It does. This car is just a blast to drive in iRacing, and I reckon you heard it there as I interviewed Josh Balicki that this car tonight, as he was driving, it was fairly similar to a Miata that he had raced in real life. So the similarities are definitely striking. I think that definitely helped a lot of them, and obviously for guys like Will Rogers, for guys like Brad Perez, they probably wanted the better finishes than they got here tonight, but I'm pretty sure they're walking away from this race with a smile on their face. I'm pretty sure they definitely had a lot of fun, and as soon as we go through the rest of this season, James, I figure we're probably going to see a turning point here tonight where the next 5 races are going to be all about fighting for those points. And we talked about the tiebreakers. I think that's going to be very imperative once we move forward.
Tiebreakers will be big. The next few races are going to be big because it is the beginning of the crunch and the stretch run to the playoffs. We are officially halfway through the regular season as of tonight. 5 races down, 4 races to go, and it starts next week when we take the Dirt Street Sox to Knoxville, Iowa. Knoxville Speedway is where we're going to be next Monday night, right here on twitch.tv/podium2, as well as the Podium Esports Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter pages. And that's the bookend of a busy week in the world of iRacing with Podium. We'll go next with PCA Sim Racing. They'll head to Michelin Raceway Road, Atlanta as Series 6 continues. You can see that broadcast at 8 p.m. Eastern, Wednesday, 9/29 on the PCA Sim Racing YouTube channel. Next Gen Fast Fridays returns, presented by Maconi Setup Shop. On the main Podium Esports Twitch channel, we go to the biggest and fastest track in all of NASCAR, Talladega Super Speedway, 9:30 p.m. Eastern, Friday night, June 11th, on the Podium Esports Twitch channel. Before Saturday night, it's the All-Star Race for the Midwest Sim Racing Association Premier Series from the old version of Charlotte Motor Speedway with an iRacing. Before it was scanned to include the updates that the Roval brought. You'll see that broadcast at 7 p.m. Eastern, Saturday night, June 12th, on the Podium 2 Twitch channel, as well as the Podium Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter pages. And then a big one, the championship race of Season 3 of the NPI Cup Series from Kansas Speedway. The season finale comes your way next Sunday, June 13th, 9:15 p.m. Eastern Time on the Podium Esports Twitch channel. And then, as we said, we're back with M&R next week from Knoxville, and the Dirt Street Stocks will tame the Iowa Dirt at 8 p.m. Eastern next Monday night, June 14th, on the Podium 2 Twitch channel, as well as the Podium Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter pages. Also have the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series from Dover the following Thursday. That'll be the cutoff of round 1, so big time implications in that race, in addition to the MPI Cup Series championship race that we'll see on Monday night. Time to close out our coverage from Monday Night Racing's Beef Jerky Unlimited Challenge, featuring the Mazda MX-5 Miata Cup car from iRacing's Lime Rock Park. For The team at Monday Night Racing, Ford Martin, Paul Sutton, Josh Mendoza, and company adminning things for our team at Podium Esports, Cisco Scaramuza, Gary Sexton, John Theodore, tonight's producer, Ryan Bauer, our camera builder, Dougie Beard, our pit reporter this evening, Justin Prince, our pre-race host, Taylor Burris, and my colleague in the booth, Kenneth Bueno. I am James Pike, the voice of Podium Esports. Thank you so much for watching our broadcast on Monday Night Racing. We look forward to seeing you next Monday night when we go dirt street stock racing from Knoxville, Iowa.